Have you ever had a situation where the customer was told one thing, but the experience they got was completely different from what was promised? Maybe sales said one thing, operations struggled to deliver, and support just handled it in a completely different way. Nobody meant to create a bad experience, but the client felt a disconnect immediately. And that's not a people problem, that's a misalignment problem. In most growing businesses, team misalignment is one of the fastest ways to quietly lose loyalty. And the bigger the team gets, the more expensive the leak becomes. So, in this video, I want to show you why team misalignment is one of the most expensive retention leaks inside most growing companies and how top brands treat misalignment. It's exactly how I help my client build client retention system by protecting their profits and raising revenues as they scale. So, typically at this stage, it's normal for most growing businesses that the team is aligned because your team grows, things get more complex because you have more people, you have more roles, you have more decisions to make as a result. And at some point, you start feeling friction that was never there before. And so that's why you hear, we never used to be like this. Exactly. You're not wrong. But the problem is, it's getting harder to align your team. You see, when a business is small, alignment happens naturally. Everyone hears the same conversations. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone understands the standards and the situation. But once you grow past a certain point, that stops happening because communication becomes indirect. Assumptions replace clarity. People start making decisions based on their department, their role, their interpretation. Departments start optimizing standards for their own goals. This happens all the time in most teams. But here's the thing, when a client experience starts to split, sales promises one thing and operations deliver another, all that, like all together, that feels inconsistent. And inconsistency creates doubt in the mind of the customer. Like we always say, inconsistency is a risk because clients don't see your department, they see one company. So when the experience changes depending on who they talk to, which location, which person, that creates a problem for the customer. And this uncertainty always lowers loyalty as a result. Like it just lowers it. But the real issue is that when this is happening in your business, it's not because you did something wrong. So look at this as an example. Your business is growing. Each person is doing a great job, depending on who you come in contact with. But if nobody is aligned around the same retention standard, the same retention system, it gets difficult because you are speaking multiple languages. And I like to use this example where you as a consumer, you probably order something, the salesperson told you one thing, and then for some reason you don't get it, right? And now you are blaming the salesperson because they promised you were going to get it on Monday. But there are so many scenarios that happen there. Perhaps the other team never got it. Perhaps it got there and it was not clearly stated that this needed to be made or sent based on priority. So this creates this friction and this creates a dynamic for the customer that they are not looking for. And that's a problem. And so it's about how do you align your team in a way that makes sense. And it all happens because a lot of teams have not done their homework. And so they are not focusing on what matters at the end of the day. And it comes down to the three C's, which is communication, clarity, and culture. And I want to go on the iPad and show you exactly how you can do that. All right. So team misalignment is critical in the experience. And so, excuse me, we need a three C's, right? Let me make sure I'm screen recording so you guys can see this as well, right? So we said the three C's. That's what you need to focus on, which is communication, right? Then you need clarity. Then you need to build a great culture. But communication and clarity ultimately built the culture, right? So if you see that there. But let's look at communication, for example. What is the one thing when it comes to communication? A lot of the time, teams, depending on the department, think one department is better than the other. And so if I am doing my job, there's no point for me to communicate with you because I'm doing my job. But here's what they miss a lot of the time. Most teams, when it comes to communication, are only thinking of themselves. They only think of themselves. They don't think about the most important person in the room, which is the customer. That's a problem. Because the customer dictates everything in the business. And just because someone is not touching the customer directly, right? If they are not touching the customer directly, they are impacting someone who is touching the customer directly. So, in the example of the sales and shipping, sales talks to the customer directly, right? You order this thing, and the salesperson is like, yeah, we can get it to you on Monday. Sales directly talks to the customer. So I want you to think about, in your world, who is talking to the customer the most? In most cases, according to research, is sales and service team members. These two talk to the customer the most. And ironically, oftentimes these people are the least engaged as well. This is according to research. So whatever that looks like in your world, but I will have a guess that it's most likely your sales and service. And this is purely based on research. So think about which people interact with your customers the most, if it's not sales or service, right? Now, think also about, okay, are there other people, other department that these people interact with, right? So using the example as a consumer, right? Sales in this example is most likely interacting with shipping, right? But again, this is all looking at what makes sense in your world. So it is important that we put that into context. So in your world, I don't know what that is, but hopefully through this exercise, you'll be able to define what that looks like. But I want to use this example. If sales communicates with shipping a lot, but sales is doing the front facing, right? So sales is on the front line, basically. It's on the front line. Shipping is more kind of hidden. Because oftentimes in most companies, that is what is happening. You have one department focusing on the customer, interacting, front facing, and you have one which is hidden. But the hidden one play a significant role than most people think. So in this example with the shipping and sales, do you think sales will have the confidence, right, to be able to tell the customer, right, to be able to tell the customer, which is the main thing here? Would they be able to tell the customer that we'll get the thing to you on Monday if they don't have confidence in the shipping department? That is not going to happen. So, yes, as much as sales is directly interacting with the customer, does not mean that they have everything it takes to serve the customer. They don't. They need shipping. They need shipping. But the customer only sees this, right? The customer only sees sales, right? The customer is only seeing the sales team. But we know behind the scenes, the customer is interacting with these as well. It's interacting with the shipping department. So as an organization, it's your role and responsibility to ensure that the communication between sales and shipping are solid. No one is more important than the other. because they all do the same job, which is to serve the customer, which is to serve the customer. And so that's why you have to get your team to understand this, that any breakdown, okay? This is important. Any breakdown at the front lines, regardless of who your frontline people are, you have to determine that in your world. Any breakdown at the front lines is a direct reflection on the entire company. This is it. Any breakdown at the front lines is a direct reflection on the entire company. So back to this example here with sales and shipping. Yes, the customer is not talking to shipping because shipping is not a front facing, right? But if sales is not able to communicate clearly with shipping, then we are going to disappoint the customer. And the customer is not looking at department. The customer is not looking at your sales department or shipping. The customer knows your company. That's the difference. And so it's ensuring that all the people involved, right? All the people involved, if anyone, okay, let's change the color here. If anyone, okay, anyone touches the process, if anyone touches the process, they touch the customer. It's as simple as that. So as you go through your organization and you are trying to get your team aligned, it's a matter of who is touching the process. And I can guarantee you, in any organization, everyone is touching the process. Everyone is. And all these people contribute to the experience of the customer. And the experience of the customer, like in the previous video, if you have not clearly defined who you are, what your identity is, and the experience becomes unpredictable, that is going to drive down low retention. And low retention, right, leads to low revenue. Retention drift leads to revenue drift. And that is important. So that's the first thing with communication. Your team, right, have to clearly know that they are supporting each other. Everyone is supporting each other. And how do you get them to communicate with each other? By clearly understanding who are the supporting cast members and how do we serve the customer predictably. So that first thing about communication. The next thing is clarity. Okay? And the only way you gain clarity is through action. Clarity comes from action. Clarity comes from action. How do you create that clarity? Is by helping your team do the things that is expected of them. But you first have to do your work by watching the first video or the last video where we talked about identity, clearly defining what great looks like. Because the more they do it, they are going to gain clarity. And oftentimes, that means that you need to prepare them. It comes back to preparation. And preparation leads to that clarity because they're doing it, they're doing the work, your team is doing the work, your organization is doing the work. And so now it's easier for you to know exactly what to do. Because the more you gain clarity, right? Because you are doing the work, you're preparing them, but clarity really comes from confidence. Your team is confident, and so now there's clarity. But you have to do the work. You have to do the work. So the only way you gain clarity by knowing who is involved, who is not involved, what they are, their roles, their supporting roles, whatever that looks like. That's the main thing. And finally, if you do these three, if you do these two, if you focus on communication, like we talked about, you've brought about clarity, which is defining, right? Everything, defining everything, giving them confidence, giving your team confidence, okay? Then ultimately, you're building the culture. It's as simple as that. The three C's is how you align your team. Leads to alignment. Right? The three C's leads to alignment. And it's important to understand that alignment is better than agreement. Alignment is better than agreement. And here's why. Oftentimes, your departments are not talking to each other. One department feels like they are better off than the other. There's competition internally. The customer is not looking at that. The customer only sees one company. Or you as the leader, the founder, the operator, you probably think, man, I don't trust my team to be able to take care of the customer. And so you jump in. The better question is here, if you don't trust your team, maybe the question is, have you given them what it takes, right? Or what they need to take care of the customer. So yes, alignment is better than agreement. But the better question is, have you given your team what it takes to take care of the customer? Do they have what they need? Back to clarity. The only way you gain clarity is through preparation, by defining what great looks like. Helping your team understand that everyone is involved. Everyone is important when it comes to the experience. If you've ever been to Disney, a couple years ago when I went to Disney, I truly, truly understood this. Because everyone at Disney, regardless of their roles, regardless of their position, regardless of their function, everyone is there to ensure that you have a great time. You have a wonderful time. Everyone understands how they play, like the integral roles they play when it comes to the overall experience. Because they know that impacts retention. And if they are not doing that consistently and they cannot get every team member to understand the roles they play in the overall experience, then that's going to impact retention and ultimately revenue. I understood this. And that's what you have to understand as well, that the three C's is the most important piece overall when it comes to the experience you want to deliver. But first, this is about aligning your team to do that consistently. And so if this resonated with you and if you found value in this, I want to encourage you and I would like to invite you to come to the Client Retention Masterclass, where I share and show you exactly the five critical mistakes most service-based businesses make, which kill their client retention and revenue and prevent them from scaling. Not only that, I will show you the exact system you need to be able to plug these holes, but also grow your business confidently. And so if you're interested and if you want to learn how to be able to do that, go ahead and sign up for the Client Retention Masterclass. I'll leave the link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.